And it's time for Lefties Losing It. And we've seen some astonishing stuff in this segment. We've heard from liars, gaslighters, the deluded, the deranged and the dull-witted. And I'm about to play you a clip that brings a lot of those elements together. Here is CNN's Abby Phillip talking to former MSNBC anchor and conspiracy theorist Joy Reid. The projection here is incredible.
Conservatives are living in a completely different information world than liberals. And breaking that down needs to be done. Because when you don't ever even hear the facts, it's hard to even know that you're wrong. And that happens a lot.
Wow. Just wow. First, she says facts. She means her demented opinions, not actual facts. And a reminder, she's been wrong on just about every consequential issue in recent years, along with Joy Reid, whose podcast she seems to be appearing on. Joy Reid, not too long ago, was pushing conspiracy theories about Donald Trump not really being hit with a bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania. She's as loopy as they come. But she's on the same side as self-delighted, self-aggrandizer Abby.
Half of my job sometimes is knowing what the latest conspiracy is, so that if it comes up, I'm ready to address it. Because it happens a lot where people don't even know that what they're saying or what they've seen and believe is not true. And so that happens a lot, and I don't come away from that saying, what's the point of this? People are just saying false things. I think that one time that person brings up something that is debunked and false, and I debunk it at the table, might be the very first time that someone out there has heard an alternative point of view.
Yes, we Conservatives really need Abby Phillip, the hopelessly biased, hopelessly wrong Abby Phillip, to debunk lies for us. Let's have a look at her recent form.
It's clear as day. The FBI put out statistics. Crime is going down. You don't have to twist the facts.
The FBI quietly comes out with this new data that shows actually violent crime is up 4.5% during that time frame.
The only person making an accusation that people are not getting what they've asked for is Trump, falsely claiming that the administration is withholding resources because of political affiliation. That is just not true.
Well, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is facing major backlash after confirming reports that a supervisor ordered disaster relief workers to avoid homes with Trump yard signs.
There's actually not any evidence linking any of Hunter Biden's wrongdoings to Joe Biden.
You are incorrect.
You think that Biden would actually pardon Hunter Biden, despite him saying pretty...
Yes, as a father, he would.
No.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Breaking news. President Biden has just pardoned his son.
Oh, there's so much more, and thanks to Maze Moore for that great compilation. Now to another CNN simpleton, Brian Stelter, who has launched a spirited defence of the BBC after the British broadcaster aired deceptively and deliberately doctored footage of President Trump's January 6th speech. Stelter is writing articles and a slew of typically stupid tweets claiming things like the BBC is feeling the Trump squeeze. It's a move we have seen several times this year against vulnerable media companies. The BBC is not vulnerable. It's a taxpayer-funded Goliath. It's funded by a mandatory licence fee paid by households, and it receives close to £4 billion per annum. But those sort of facts are clearly beyond Brian. Joining me now is filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, more on the BBC scandal that has seen the resignation of the BBC's Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness after the taxpayer-funded broadcaster aired deliberately and dishonestly doctored footage of Donald Trump's January 6th speech. But despite the BBC's history of institutional bias, the British left is circling the wagons as Donald Trump demands accountability. Let's hear from Tim Davie.
We have to be very clear and stand up for our journalism. We are a unique and precious organisation. And I see the free press, I see the weapon under pressure, I see the weaponisation. I think we've got to fight for our journalism. I'm really proud of our work, and the amazing work locally, globally that we're doing is utterly precious.
Unique and precious, really. Let's hear from Liberal Democrat MP Munira Wilson, who is terrified by the prospect of what she calls the Trumpification of our politics and media. Get ready to lose some brain cells.
When Donald Trump got involved and called the BBC corrupt, that we've had these 2 resignations overnight, and we've now had his press secretary claiming this as a victory for Trump. Now, the BBC belongs to Britain, and I think we should all be concerned whether it's foreign powers or indeed domestic powers, and we know that there are the likes of Farage and Reform who would love to see the BBC destroyed. That really worries me, because we cannot see the Trumpification of our politics and our media landscape. We've seen what that's done in America. So this is a moment for the BBC to reset and restore trust.
Army, they really are terrified of any sort of accountability. And let's not forget, the BBC is taxpayer funded. Brits are obliged to pay for this leftist activist machine.
Yeah, what a grift. They pay $20 US a month for the BBC. That's more than Netflix. Okay, I don't know what that comes out to in Australian dollars, like $1,000. I can't do the math in my head. But very interestingly,
not quite.
Okay, but very interestingly, if you're blind, you get a 50% discount. I'm not joking. And if you have a black and white television, you get a 66% discount. So go figure. There are deals to be had at the BBC. Oh, God. Look, the truth is I learned so much from the BBC. For example, did you know that male breast milk is just as nutritious as female breast milk? I bet you didn't know that. Yes, because they have so much invested in men being women. They did a story on how if you pump a man with enough hormones, he will secrete milk. Oh, God. I want to poke my mind's eye out. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I couldn't finish that. No, they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. And it's always so funny to me when my liberal friends here, they always go, oh, American news is such BS. CNN and Fox News, such garbage. I listen to the BBC. Oh, my God. The effect reaction, it's so gross. No, the BBC is awful. Let's not forget that during the Gaza conflict, they did a documentary on Gaza, and the narrator of this documentary was the son of a Hamas minister. Look, they're awful, obviously, and there's no wonder that GB News, which is the center-right, the right outlet there, is eating their lunch. They are now, for 4 months in a row, the #1 news channel in England. It's no wonder. They failed all across the board.
Well, that's extraordinary. I didn't know that, because GB News, their resources are tiny compared to the BBC, and every household with a television is obliged to give them money, as you explained. Now, Nigel Farage, whose Reform Party is leading the polls, was also asked about Donald Trump putting pressure on the BBC. This was his response.
What do you make of President Trump weighing into the conversation about the BBC and the British media landscape? Do you welcome that, or does that concern you?
Well, if I was the President of the United States of America, if I was the person making sure that the United Kingdom had security guarantees that meant that it could be defended, whereas on its own it would be helpless, and I'd been stitched up on the eve of a national election. I mean, people talk about election interference. What the BBC did was election interference. If you put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes, I think you'll understand why, when I had a chat with him on Friday, he made his feelings on the subject known to me in no uncertain terms and not in a quotable form.
I really do want to know what he said precisely, but the British media army, the left, will try to use this to damage Nigel Farage, given the relentless negative media Donald Trump receives in Britain. They believe they can hurt Farage because of his closeness to the president. But it hasn't hurt him yet. Look at this. Reform, as you can see, is well ahead of Labor and the Tories. That could be the next British Prime Minister. But there is just this, as you touched on, this preoccupation with just how terrible politics and the media is in the US and how much more free and rational they are in the UK, as they're arresting grandmothers for tweeting memes.
Yeah, get ready to say Prime Minister Farage. The Conservative Party, whose lunch he's eating, is not the party of Margaret Thatcher. That's for sure. As the great poet-philosopher Monty Python says, it has ceased to be. The Conservative Party has been hemorrhaging voters and votes. In May they had a local election, and they were trounced by the Reform Party. And there's a sort of an exit of a Brexit, if you will, of Conservative members going toward the Reform Party. The Conservative Party had 16 local councils to defend. They lost 16 out of 16. That's just not going to do it. Yeah, and if you look at what the polls are saying in terms of what British voters want, well, far and away, the number one issue is immigration. And that's where the Reform Party shines. The Conservative Party has been echoing much of the sentiment of the Labour Party, frankly, when it comes to immigration. The number two issue is the NHS, the National Health Service. That's a total tire fire, and a tire fire not only under the Labour Party, but also under the Conservative Party. What you have to understand, certainly for our American viewers, is that the politics in England is different than the American political process, and same with you guys. Is that in their process, like the Conservative Party is more like the middle of the road Democrats, and the Labour Party are more like, you know, the Squad. They're really become far left, and it's just not getting done. And now the Conservative Party is kind of getting hip to that, and they're trying to like out Catholic the Pope, and they have a new leader, and she's trying to out reform the Reform Party. But the polls are showing the voters aren't buying it. So, yeah, it's a fascinating mix of what's going on there.